Joel G, it looks like we've got some folks starting to roll in.
Great.
Welcome, everyone. Looks like we're up to 13 now, and we'll just give folks a few more minutes and then dive in.
Okay. I bet this is the first time anyone's ever been in one of these sessions where they're being greeted by Joel and Joel.
We were talking about that ahead of time. We were thinking about renaming this webinar just Joel Squared, but you thought it might not have relevance beyond us, so we figured we'd keep the title as is.
Fair enough, but it does have kind of a kick to it. It does have kind of a zing.
It does. All right, I'll just wait one more minute and then get going here.
Welcome to everybody.
All right, well, it looks like we're up over 20 folks, so we can start going as the other half of the folks pile in here. And as people join and get situated, I just wanted to take a moment to thank everyone for registering for today's webinar. We're really excited for this conversation, and as we're going through as well today, please ask any questions in the Zoom chat, the Q&A section, and we're going to answer some of those as we go through the conversation, as well as have time at the end for an extended Q&A session. So we'll make sure that all your questions get answered, and absolutely please document them in the chat there for us. And we'll also have a few polls throughout today's conversation, and we'll be kind of moderating and direct you towards there as they come up. And so thank you in advance for taking a minute to fill those polls out, help us guide the conversation a little bit more to make sure we're talking about what's most relevant to everyone who's joined today. And then at the end of the webinar, we'll have a quick survey so you can provide us feedback, help us learn what was most helpful, any information that you wanted to get out of this that you didn't. And thank you in advance as well for taking a few minutes to fill that out so that we can make sure we're getting better as we move forward here. So now let's dive in, and I'll start off. I've been talking and to actually put a face to the name and introduce myself. My name is Joel Pollick. I'm founder and CEO of Percent Pledge, and our whole mission and work is to make workplace philanthropy easy for businesses like Suzy to help you be able to authentically improve employee engagement, employer brand, and also to make a positive impact in the causes and communities that your company and your employees care about most. And for us, we really serve as kind of a single source for workplace philanthropy, everything from matching donations and volunteering to impact reporting, charity vetting, realizing how important it is to help your employees do good and be a leading corporate citizen for businesses of all sizes today, and wanting to realize, though, that actually doing good and managing and measuring a positive impact is difficult. And so our whole work and solutions to make that easy for you. And one of the one of the things that we've been hearing from so many customers, which is why we're so excited about today's conversation, is just responding to social movements that arise, disasters that might strike, and being really proactive with employees on, yes, having that opportunity for folks to do good throughout the year in whatever matching donations, volunteering, any social programming you might have, but also being really responsive and proactive when certain times arise that that are both urgent and emotional, where employees really want to act. And that's really going to be the focus of this webinar and discussion today, is talking through how to be proactive when things like that happen. And we've got with us here one of our customers, Suzy, and Joel Guzman. The other Joel, hopefully that will not be too confusing for folks. I will refer to Joel as Joel G or Guz throughout the conversation, to hopefully help clarify. And to get us going, Joel, maybe you could provide us a little bit of an intro before we dive into the meat of the conversation.
Absolutely. Well, my name is Joel Guzman, as he just said. And by the way, people have been calling me Joel lately, so you can even call me Joel if you'd like, Joel, if that helps. I'm the Director of Office Employee Experience at Suzy. We're a marketing company, software company based here in New York. And I was just telling Joel just a little while ago, just before we got on the call, that we've been doing business with Percent Pledge for even before the pandemic, since 2019. And I think it was before that, Joel. I got to be honest with you. In my mind, I'm seeing 2018, but I could be wrong. But the reaching out to Percent Pledge and working with Percent Pledge was a direct result of the need to be socially relevant, to do good work, to help our employees contribute to things that are important to them. And when we were talking about Percent Pledge and we were discussing it with our employees, it always came down to a variation of two words. It came down to I care, you care, we care, you care. And once you have that out there, you can move mountains, you can make miracles. So I'm happy to be on here and discuss this and have this conversation with Joel and help in any way I can.
Well, thank you for the intro and the kind words. And I'm grateful, whether it's 2019 or 2018, that we've had the partnership going this long and are continuing to grow it. And to dive in into some of our initial topics here in conversation, if we're able to hop over to the next slide here, we wanted to, as I mentioned, spend this conversation really focusing on that proactivity when special rapid response campaigns occur, and that ideally our vision and hopefully shared with everyone on the call today is that every business in America and beyond will have some sort of workplace philanthropy, social impact program, ways for employees to do good, throughout the year on a day-to-day basis. But important to that is that when certain things arise, being really proactive, and oftentimes employees as well as the C-suite and company leaders will look to those programs and the teams or people that lead them and say, hey, you're up. Now is for the time for us to step up and really come front and center here. And with Suzy in particular, in the Suzy Cares program that we've created with our partnership, there's been three really amazing examples, which is one of the main reasons we wanted to speak to Joel on today's webinar, is when the invasion occurred in Ukraine, when some of the recent mass shootings occurred, when the decision on Roe v. Wade came down, I guess officially from the Supreme Court, all three of these really kind of watershed moments for society, but also employees at different companies or people within society. And so with employees at Suzy, there was this desire to act, to be a positive force during kind of these challenging, uncertain, sometimes negative moments. And so just recently, in these three different examples with Support Ukraine and gun violence, reproductive rights, three rapid response campaigns that we launched together with Joel and his team across all of Suzy to match employee donations, support different vetted nonprofit partners, and all of these being launched pretty immediately after the invasion occurred in Ukraine, after the mass shootings, or after the decision from Roe v. Wade. So wanted to just shed some light to help provide context for some of the questions I'll be asking to Joel, and some of the conversation we'll be having on the amazing work that Suzy has done to be really proactive when these challenging times strike. And that really leads into question one here, which is, Joel, I've just provided a few of the examples there of kind of how much of a shining example Suzy's been in responding and helping employees do good. Could you maybe shed some light on, what motivated Suzy to be proactive with helping employees respond quickly? If you have any of the sort of origin stories on some of those campaigns, what was really the impetus to be so proactive and such a great example?
Well, it's a funny thing. It's almost like burning the candle at both ends, because first off, our executive team gets involved. Our chief people officer is it just oozes empathy, and he knows when stuff is happening in the news. I mean, you open up the newspaper. I said newspaper. When you open up your phone and you see what's going on in the world, you automatically somebody needs help. On the other end, our employees, they come to us and say, we have a few folks that have either relatives or loved ones in the Ukraine, and said, can we do something to help these folks? Can we do something to help the folks who are suffering from gun violence? Can we help some people who are suffering from social inequality? These are things that motivate our employees to tell us what we should put on percent pledge, and where they can donate money, donate time as well. We try our best to deal with these causes, but to stay non-political. And that's hard sometimes, because a lot of these causes are political, but just by their nature. But we try very hard to, when we announce it to the rest of the team, we say, we want to help those who don't have a voice. We want to help those who we think this is a good cause, and we want to help those who need the help. So it comes from the top and it comes from the middle from our employees. And I got to tell you, for each of the causes you just mentioned, we've had at least a dozen employees saying, how can we help, way before we even started to work with Percent Pledge.
It really is, I mean, no surprise, but one thing I wanted to follow up with you on that I think really stood out in what you were sharing there was, is it correct that I'm hearing you right of this kind of beautiful mix of top down as well as bottom up? So it's not just the energy that you're hearing from employees, but it's also that support that you have from the leadership and the C-suite on, when something happens, taking action.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Every single cause in our portfolio, we try to be as proactive as possible. Look, here's something I mentioned to my boss a while back. There are always going to be things that are going to happen, and they're going to happen. Well, they're going to happen. You're going to have racial inequality. You're going to have mass shootings. You might have a war break out there. And so it's wonderful to have a company like Percent Pledge that we can get on top of it right away, instead of having to create something. And that's unfortunately the way of the world. That's just the way it is. Things are going to happen. But our employees are there. They're ready to give when asked to. And then our executive team, who always have their finger on the pulse of things, they say, listen, how can we help these folks in the Ukraine? How can we help these folks that are victims of mass shootings? How can we help stop the racial and the social injustice in the world? Yes, it comes from the top, it comes from the middle, and it also comes from the bottom, because a lot of these things are also very organic. Sometimes you don't see them right away, but our teams are looking at them. And also we get a lot of, I would say, suggestion from our employees. You know that a lot of times we'll ask if we can put a cause on our platform, something that you probably never heard of, something maybe a dog pound in Virginia, or maybe a house building in California. So a lot of that stuff is very small, and it grows, and through our employees and through our executive team.
Yeah, no, that's a really important point to underscore, especially with we mentioned that mix of top down versus bottom up, and really finding that balance. But also that for some of the different campaigns that we've done together with Suzy, it's been it's been our team leading the charity vetting efforts to say, okay, we already are responding to this that's happened and are identifying top rated nonprofits either in our network or beyond that would do the most good with support from your employees. But oftentimes as well, I'm thinking to some of the campaigns that we had done in response to some of the mass shootings where Suzy employees were already either connected to or working with local organizations. I know a lot of Suzy's based in New York. A lot of employees are there. When the devastating shooting in Buffalo happened, there was already some connections made, and so it is, I think, a really important mix to note there too, in terms of welcoming those employee suggestions and recommendations, and creating, whether it's a space or processes or just kind of a culture where employees feel empowered to share those organizations, where they know which teams or individuals they should be directing those recommendations to, and then obviously useful as well to work with a company like us where we're doing, where our day job is forming those nonprofit connections and doing that research. And so I wanted to continue on here thinking about kind of an extension of that focus on employees, but for Suzy, and pardon me, actually, we're going to pause for a quick poll, then we'll go into that next question. So apologies there for the audible and programming, but wanted to have this first poll, and you'll see it pop up on your screen here. Curious to know from the audience, do your employees ask for help when responding, when disaster strikes, social movements arise? Is it something where oftentimes maybe you're hearing from leadership, but most of the time we think and are curious to know from our audience, is it employees coming quietly or banging at the door to ask for help when things happen? So I'll leave this open for a minute or so and continue the conversation, and then can share some of the poll results later as well. All right. Well, I was doing Mississippi counting, and I think we got to about a minute. So we'll continue forward here. And Joel, to bring back that conversation and focus on employees with this next question is, how does Suzy give employees both sort of space, which we spoke about a little bit, as well as choice to do good during these times? Could you maybe speak about some of the experience and things that you've done there, and any of your thoughts on the importance of giving employees that space and choice when it comes to these programs?
Sure. Well, first off, it's important to know that when we onboard our employees, we give them the opportunity. We let them know we have % pledge, and it's an option for you. We don't twist anybody's arm. In fact, and I'll tell you about this in a minute, it's the other way around. They're twisting our arms to do good. So we give them the choice to join % pledge and give wherever you want. And then when you get on the platform, there's just a whole host of options for you to do that. As far as space is concerned, the space is not really an issue, because every day we have, I shouldn't say, let me back up just a little bit. Things happen, and folks are looking at their TVs, their computers, their phones. They're saying, hey, this is bad. We should try and do something about it. I'm going to reach out to Joel, or I'm going to reach out to the people team and see how can we do this. I can tell you that when we decide, when the executive team, or when our chief people officer decide we're gonna do a cause, or we're gonna do this, we put it out to the entire company via Slack, via email, and we give people the choice. If you want to join in on this, you can go to % pledge. The cause is there, and give whatever you want. And we're not, we say give whatever you want, but here's the really important thing. that Susie does. We match donations. If it's a cause that's big enough, that's worthy enough, and they're all worthy and they're all good, but there's some causes that need more help than others. Right off the bat, the Ukrainian crisis, we match donations and we match it to X amount of dollars. And we tell everybody, you get to this point, we're going to match it to that point and we're going to give it out. And we also give them full disclosure of where the money's going. We tell them, we're working through percent pledge, but we're also telling you where the money is going from percent pledge. So it's either going to the Red Cross or it's going to another organization. So they know that their money is going to worthy causes. And by the way, you put there during bad times, there are also good times. There are times when there's nothing happening. Thank God. And people want to give that also. And I'll give you a perfect example of that. The other day, I had a Slack message from a young lady who says there's this pet shelter in Virginia that they're running out of money. They need help. And she asked if we could put that on percent pledge. Well, I got to tell you, I went to Maureen and I said, can we put this on? And you guys were very, very helpful on that. And you put it on there and we were able to help that dog pound out and donate money to them. So, it's during the good times, it's during the bad times, but we also give them a lot of space to choose what they want to do. And we also tell them that, if you're going to give, we're going to give as well.
Yeah, no, that there's a couple pieces I wanted to highlight from that I think are just so critical and good takeaways for everyone on the webinar with us today. And also, but before even noting those, you're absolutely correct that I was trying to think as you were talking on what to replace bad times with, because it should be replaced within this context is maybe it's critical or important times, but it could be good as well. And it even your comment made me think about the so many of the campaigns that our customers and community did to match donations to help their employees do good after the murder of George Floyd and the resurrection of the Black Lives Matter movement. And while that murder itself is a terrible, devastating, bad time, but the kind of the result of that and the positivity and the action towards good that came after was really beautiful and good. And so it is such a great point you make there that being proactive with employees and helping them give them choice to do good is it good times and bad, and really how do we listen to our employees to help guide those efforts and provide them the flexibility, realizing that everyone cares about different things to support what matters to them most. And there were a few points in your response that I wanted to highlight, one of which is that matching donation component. And authenticity is a word that comes up a lot with these programs. And that's one of the things that we even get feedback on from employees at certain companies that maybe aren't matching, is they'll come to us and ask, is my company matching? And we have to kind of smartly guide them towards having that conversation internally, because it's not something we can decide on, certainly something we can enable, but it is so important. And we've seen such success when and programs are just so much more authentic when companies are also boosting their employee impact with matching donations, when they're putting their dollars and attention there to support whatever employees care about. So thinking about that space and choice, I want to continue the conversation there a little bit, but we'll go next to our second poll here, and then we'll jump to the last couple of questions. So our second poll here and last one of the day, which I'll leave open for a minute, is how do you respond when disasters strike, social movements arise, or just critical important moments come up that your employees or your company feels obligated to do something for? And there's a lot of different ways that you could go with this. So check all that apply. And we tried to fill the poll here just with some of the things that we hear most often from our customers or companies that we're engaging that we haven't partnered with yet.
Joel, I'd like to make a point while everybody's filling out that the survey is that, as I said before, disasters are going to happen. There's going to be shootings. There's going to be things, and we got to be prepared for them. But the biggest disaster of all, probably of this century so far, happened, I don't think anybody was prepared for it, was COVID. And I would say that although COVID was bad and is bad, it helped because I think people who would ordinarily go out and do things and to help with these causes, now they find a way to contribute, to be part of the solution without having to leave their homes. And I think that's something that Percent Pledge has done amazingly, giving us an opportunity to help when we didn't have to go outside and risk our health.
Yeah, no, that is I appreciate you making that point, and that it's funny too, because that a lot of the changes that we made in the way that we were working with customers when COVID hit, to shift, to increase the features on a giving platform, to be more remote friendly and facilitate just better execution of giving programs within the context of a more distributed workforce, or introducing and focusing on virtual volunteering. Those are pieces that were kind of born out of necessity from COVID, but have remained today, even as we're maybe not totally done with COVID, but as more and more companies are moving back into a hybrid setting, or have the ability to move back into a totally in-person workforce and work environment. We're still seeing that change going from remote distributed is not something that's just reverting now that we have the vaccine and more of the new strands are under control. It's something that's going to be around for a while. And so those were really interesting pieces that were initially born out of necessity, but are now kind of here to stay as new innovations of just realizing that there's maybe better ways to serve our customers and help connect their remote teams that are going to be remote moving forward.
I want to just say one thing, and I just let one of the programs that came out of COVID was the New York Cares Initiative, where we were able to get laptops and technical equipment to kids who had to be home and didn't have computers. And we didn't want those kids being left behind. We didn't want them falling behind. And we were able to give out 100 computers, technical information. We were able to give out, in some cases, give out some internet access. So that's what bore out. That's one of the things that bore out from COVID. And we found a need and we filled it. And thank you so much for that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It was such a joy to work with Suzy and really start our partnership on that effort. And Suzy brought in 10 or 15 other companies across tech companies across New York to sort of form this coalition of getting so often social impact programs are thought of as dollars, treasure, donations, whether it's matching or employee, or service hours, volunteering, whether that's pro bono, virtual, skills-based. But this idea and this program and campaign that Suzy had built out, and we are so grateful to be a partner on, was really the same thinking and impact, but in a different way of saying, hey, wow, there's so many children across New York that can't access their e-learning or don't have the internet or the hardware to continue their education in this isolated environment. It was, in a simple way, quite literally, hey, we're tech companies that have tons of computers and hardware, and we are going to go in and shake the cobwebs off in our IT closets and get all of those computers and devices over to students to help them continue their education, which was a beautiful thing to see. And
that was awesome.
The next question here, before we dive into, we'll actually have a couple more and then dive into the Q&A, is just around something you mentioned earlier, of how some of these campaigns that arise are inherently somewhat political in nature, or can be politically charged. So there is really some sensitivity to be had there. How do you think about, how does Suzy speak about these different campaigns and events to its employees, or even externally?
Well, we're a startup, and and the median age of our employees are maybe 28, 30. And so when you have a group like that, they're young, they tend to think a certain way. They may not think about it in political terms, but they think a certain way. And to them, the question of choice is a no-brainer. So we take the reproductive rights, for example, and when we brought that out as a campaign to our team, we merely said that this is what's going on in the world, and this is what we want to do. We didn't put any kind of political spin on it. We didn't say that the other side is bad, that our side is good. It's just an opportunity for people to give money, to give people a choice about things. And that's the thing you got to remember, that you never know what somebody's political ideology is. You certainly don't want to put anybody down for it, because everybody deserves a chance to speak. That's what America is all about. But we want to make sure that when we roll out these initiatives, that we keep them apolitical, we keep them neutral, and we just tell people this is a choice. This is just a choice. And like I said, we don't twist anybody's arm to give or to contribute or to get involved, but you do get people reaching out to us and saying, hey, what can we do about this? And can I tell you that some causes are more difficult than others, and this one in particular, because again, it's very hard to speak about it without being political. But sometimes you've just got to be able to cut through the demagoguery and just kind of say, let's give people an opportunity. That's it.
Yep. And as you were talking, it almost occurred to me that maybe it is as simple as from a zeros versus a one perspective of there's maybe the only thing that you can do wrong is to not speak about it at all, or and that, trying to think about or be thoughtful about how to speak about it, that's the right way to think about it, as opposed to avoiding the conversations, because the conversations are out there. And so, employees and the public and whoever, these conversations are happening. And so it, again, is maybe the only thing not to do is to not speak about these events at all, but to your points and what you put eloquently is offer that choice and listen to employees, help them kind of guide the approach and conversation, because ultimately too, for Susie, thinking about how you're going to help your employees do good in response to some of these different events or campaigns. The end of it, if you're trying to help support and engage your people, you want to guide it towards what you're hearing from them and what they care about. So yeah, I think, and one question I had there too is, do you think the kind of principles that we're talking about here of, do something that speaking about it in some way is the right approach, and that there isn't a right or wrong answer on what you should say or what you shouldn't, but to speak about it thoughtfully, to just kind of cover the facts and not put any political opinion there, and to really have that centered around what you're hearing from your people, your most important asset, your most important stakeholder. Do you think those are principles that are relevant across org size in your opinion, or does some of the way you have to think about or speak about these things, do you think it's dependent on org size?
I think it's dependent on geography. I really do. I think that, although we're based here in New York, we have folks all across the country. We have folks in blue states and in red states, and we have to be very sensitive to their opinions as well. So we have to think about that. We have to think about where our message goes. We're not just talking to the folks who are in a very liberal state. We're talking to folks that are across the country. And, we have to be very delicate in the way we put it. Again, you don't want to make it political, but that's a very hard thing to do with some causes. But if you can speak about it in generalities and say, this is what we're doing, this is what we want to do, and give people the choice. I mean, it's not like we're asking people to take money out of their paychecks. We're taking it out of their paychecks pre-tax. We're giving them the process, the campaign, the platform to do something. And with that, they can give as little or as much as they want, or they choose not to, or they can choose not to.
Right. Yep. Or they can choose to, frankly, within that platform, any other causes that are related to the campaign that are maybe in, direct opposition, but are what they care about.
Right,
so
exactly.
it really is, give them, empower them with the tools and opportunity to do good, and but let them decide on what turns and what causes and communities that means for them. And the last question here is a little bit of a summation of our conversation, but what advice would you give to other companies and leaders that are trying to think about how to do better here, how to be more proactive, more thoughtful, more communicative with their employees, and how they help their employees do good, give their employees that choice to do good?
I would say, first, find a good platform to distribute monies, to distribute information. I'd also say you need to have someone who is the point person of the sort of thing, someone who's going to be looking at the news, looking at current events and seeing what's going on, so that when something happens and an employee says, hey, are we doing anything about what happened in Nebraska last week, you're not caught off guard. I would say also that you want to lead the employees to it, but you don't want to force it on them. You want to give them the opportunity and the choices to be better people, to give wherever they want to give. And the choice is really the operative word here. Give them the choice to give wherever they want to give. But the most important thing I would say is to listen to your employees, listen to what people are saying, listen to what people are thinking, whether it's on an internal Slack channel or it's on social media. Listen to what they're saying and listen to what they're leaning towards and what's important to them. And that'll give you a very good starting point to the causes that you want to pay close attention to.
Yep. No, and just to underscore that point, we often, when we're starting partnerships and talking to new customers, to new companies, when we're talking about which causes and which charities, which partnerships they want to focus on and support most or feature, it oftentimes is sort of a Venn diagram flipped on its head of like thinking about, okay, what are the brand aligned, mission aligned causes? If we're an ed tech company focusing on K through 12 education and nonprofits that support that, and from the bottom up, what are the causes our employees care about most? And hopefully then where we like to arrive at is that middle, that overlap. And but if we can't, we recommend weighting it more heavily towards the bottom up, towards what employees care about, offering that choice, not restricting the different organizations or causes that they can support within your program, because it is just so critical with understanding the diversity of all that people care about. Folks are passionate about different things, and so often the charitable causes they champion are really personally, resonant and connected to people. And so making sure that, if you're having these programs, that they're done so in a way where each individual employee can, bring their passions with them to the office, to their work experience, whatever those might be. So any other final parting words before we dive into the Q&A, Joel?
I would say this, that, there are days when, there's good times and there's days when there's bad times, and we need to focus on the bad times. I would say this, that if an employee has a worthwhile cause that they want to support, and it doesn't include an incident where there were body bags, I'd say support it. I'd say support those causes that are important to people, because I think that in the end, at the end of the day, these things kind of outweigh the bad. And I think that, by giving to these different causes, we're showing that we're not only reacting, but we're also being ahead of things. And I'd like to think that there's a lot more good in the world than there is bad, but we'll never know unless we kind of spotlight it.
Yep. No, absolutely. Well, thank you for that, as well as all the other answers. And now we're going to borrow a little bit more of your time just in answering some of these questions from the audience. So to dive in here, I'm going to start with the first here from an anonymous attendee. What surprised you as being more difficult than you expected when you were implementing your program, when you were launching Suzy Cares and starting to help employees do good? What was some of the hurdles that arose that were maybe taller than you expected?
Getting to when we started Suzy, and by the way, we misspoke a little bit. It actually is called Suzy New York Tech Cares. That's actually the name of the organization. The biggest hurdle was getting the equipment, because this all happened at the height or at the beginning of COVID, and everybody was a little skittish about getting outside and delivering items, and it was very hard to get those all in one place. Sending them out to the deserving kids was not a problem. We use Federal Express, UPS, and so on. But getting them in one unified place was a little difficult because, like I said, people wouldn't want to go out. I will say though that through Percent Pledge, we were able to find a vendor who was able to pick up the items for us and bring them to me so that we could send them out. But that was probably the biggest hurdle at that time.
And funny enough, that was actually another nonprofit organization that we were able to partner with for that. This incredible organization, Invisible Hands, that had young, able-bodied folks during the pandemic that oftentimes were delivering food, groceries, resources to immunocompromised communities, older communities that needed to stay in their home, and we were able to put their army of do-gooders to use in a new, different way. Joel, what about your workplace giving program and the different matching campaigns you've done with employees? And when we launched the platform together, was there anything more difficult or surprisingly difficult when we were getting that workplace giving program set up with Suzy?
Well, there was nothing difficult about it. I mean, we had kind of targeted, I think, to begin with, about 20 different causes we want to give money to. And as time went on, and whatever was happening in the world, we were able to add more to it. I think one of the very first programs we added, one of the first causes we added right after we went virtual, right after the beginning of COVID, was for social injustice, and we added to that. And it didn't surprise me that people were asking about it. What did surprise me that so many people wanted to support it. So many people wanted to be involved and give money wherever they could. And that was one of the first campaigns where our Suzy exec team said they were going to match funds. So that was very nice.
Yep. No, absolutely. And just from our experience as well, oftentimes to that question of what surprised you as being more difficult than expected when implementing a program, sometimes it is getting that final kind of C-suite buy-in. And the other thing that we see sometimes is the internal communication, right? And Joel, you mentioned earlier, when some of the campaigns that we do together, you share via Slack, via email, via other channels. That's often what we see as being more difficult than folks expected, is making sure that you're not, spamming everyone in every different location, but that you really do need to, make sure that employees know about this program, because everyone is so busy and folks need to see something, 5, 6, 7 times before it actually sinks in. And so sharing details about your program across multiple internal communication channels is another critical piece. Another question here: how do you decide who in your org sends the comms out during times of disaster? Does it always come from one leader, or does it change based on the nature of the crisis? So maybe to expand on this question, Joel, is as they asked, are the comms always coming from a single source? Does that change? And if it does change at all, what are the factors that go into whether comms are sent out from one party versus another?
Well, the comms are usually a team effort. I would say that they come from our people team, from our chief people officer, from the good folks at Percent Pledge. I chime in on it also, and also our head of HR. Most of the communications, and by the way, just to go back to something you said before about transparency, not only is it important to get the word out, but it's important to how you say it. So when you ask who these come from, we're very careful on what we say, because we want to make sure that we get the communication out properly. We want to get the message out properly. We want to make it seem like it's good for everybody. So for the most part, it's a team effort, and we get everybody's input, and then we take some time to write it up. On occasion, it may come from a different source. And I'll give you a perfect example. The last big communication we had was for reproductive rights. And that came from our head of HR. And she had a good feel for it. She wanted to do it, and it's something that was near and dear to her heart. So she sent out the communication on that. But sometimes if something is close closer to one person than it is another, we'll let them run with it. But for the most part, it's a team effort.
That is a very good answer there. And the next question here, how do you think about success of your program? A certain participation threshold, just having the program available, for whether it's some of these campaigns or just more broadly, you know, our partnership in this ongoing workplace philanthropy program. You mentioned all new employees here. Hey, we have Percent Pledge in this platform for you to make donations, to volunteer. How do you judge success of the program on an ongoing basis?
We send out, well, every month we get a communication from Percent Pledge telling us what has been given to specific causes, and then we share it out with the company. We also share out where we are with matching donations. But just having the program there as something for people to use is great, because not only does it give everybody a tool or actually an opportunity to give, but it also, Percent Pledge is great about sending them information, for example, for tax purposes, for sending out communications to the cause that we're supporting at that given time. And so I rated on its success, not so much on how much we give on a given month, but the fact that we have it there and the fact that how many people are actually involved in it. And I can tell you to this point, I think 90%, no, as a matter of fact, I know for a fact, because I asked Maureen this yesterday. Maureen is another member of Percent Pledge. She says 90% of the company is involved in Percent Pledge, and that's a staggering amount. It's an amazing amount. Obviously, we want to see 100%, but 90% of the company, that's a pretty good percentage.
Yeah, I'm obviously biased, but I agree. And thinking to some of the ways that, just to expound on your answer, some of the other ways that our customers think about it, it really is just having the program available as kind of a baseline, because Joel, you alluded to this a little bit earlier, that it's great for your existing employees, but also for the people that you're trying to hire and bring into the mission, that whether you provide your people opportunities to do good, to give back, has kind of become table stakes now. And so at a baseline, there's value driven from just having the program available, because it is something that's really important to today's talent when they're thinking about who they want to work with. Do their values and their mission align with the company that might be hiring them? And then the other piece that we see often from customers is that participation rate. Can we drive really high engagement and participation, realizing that most people are donating, are philanthropically active in some way today, you know, donating, volunteering, serving on a nonprofit board. And so can we get them to, you know, bring their causes with them to work, to engage, participate in the program? And then another key stat that a lot of our customers care deeply about is the number of organizations supported and helped. There obviously is a lot of data that we provide and the platform does around, you know, number of donations and dollar figures and amount matched and volunteer hours served, which are all important, more so for internal reporting purposes, but kind of the real benchmarks are the most important pieces that we see our customers focusing on to know whether or not their program is successful. Is, do we make it available and give employees that choice? Do we have a high participation, or is a large majority of our people participating in this program? And are we positively impacting a large number of causes and communities that are important to our people?
And I would also say that most of our causes are ongoing. Nothing gets stopped at, say, on December 1st, we're going to stop one cause and bring in another. One of the great things is that we can bring in more causes to augment the cause we already have. We have causes that run the gamut of every kind of charity and donations. We have from helping pets to helping firefighters to helping kids work from home. So we don't eliminate any causes. We just add on to them.
Yep, absolutely. So that, I think, brings us almost to the end here, and I want to make sure that we give everyone a few minutes of their day back. And I've got a few closing remarks, but I'll I'll pause here for about 30 seconds in case there is any other final questions from folks in the audience. If there is final questions that you want to get in, please share them in the chat right now, and otherwise we'll, in about 30 seconds, close things out.
Joel, I have a question for you.
Yeah, absolutely.
And if you can, in a short, in maybe a paragraph, how did you come about finding Percent Pledge?
It was
Creating Percent Pledge, I should say.
Yeah, your question's a difficult one to do so in a paragraph in a succinct way, but essentially, I grew up around philanthropy and corporate social responsibility. My dad had founded a nonprofit about 25 years ago. I got a ton of free domain experience growing up in that world, and I thought that I would not work here. I started my career in B2B SaaS sales and marketing and strategy consulting. And ironically, my desire to give back kind of brought me full circle back to giving back, no pun intended. But I wanted to initially start my career saying, Dad runs a nonprofit, I'll go make as much money as possible. And then once I started to succeed there, I wanted to start giving back, and there wasn't a good way to do so. There wasn't really any option that my company, a small consulting firm, had. And that really led me to starting Percent Pledge, is realizing, oh, wow, there's this need, across corporate America, that it isn't just the Fortune 500, the leading corporate citizens, that have full-time corporate social responsibility teams and platforms and impact consultants, that businesses of all sizes have this desire from their employees and this need to help them do good, and that these programs could be valuable beyond that Fortune 500 leading corporate citizens. So could we bring a solution to market that filled that need for companies like Suzy and for everyone else?
I think you did pretty good.
That was a couple of paragraphs, but shorter than the normal. And just to wrap up here, thank you again for everyone who joined and listened in on the conversation. We hope it was valuable for you and really spoke to some of the ways and provided some great examples on how a leading corporate citizen like Suzy is being really thoughtful and proactive with helping its employees do good during bad times or good, during critical times. And we're going to be sharing out the recording as well as a document with action items to so that you have something really tangible and actionable, sharing some of the key points that we covered here today, some of the best practices to implement in some of these rapid response campaigns, to be proactive with employees, and how to actually take action on those. And the final piece I'll mention on Percent Pledge that I spoke to a little bit earlier in the conversation. If we can support your efforts in any way, please reach out to us. Our mission is to make workplace philanthropy easy, make it possible for businesses of any size to help their employees donate, volunteer, support whatever they care about, and then provide impact reporting as well as a bunch of other wraparound services in addition to our giving platform, so that a company like Suzy, for instance, can have the same sort of social impact program that the big players do. And we are always looking to broaden our horizons, grow our community. And so if it is something you're interested in learning more about, please reach out. And in the meantime, we will get the recording and key takeaways document over to you all so that you can take some of this conversation forward to positively benefit you and your organizations. And with that, I think we'll turn the recording off. Joel G., thank you so much for having this conversation and joining us here. We're again biased, but I really enjoyed it, and I hope you did too.
I did. Thank you, Corey, for helping out too.
Yes, let's make sure that gets in on the recording, is the thank you to Corey, because she is a Swiss Army knife and put in a Herculean effort to make this happen and make it as successful as it was. So thank you again.
Take care, everybody.
Thanks all. Have a good one.